What's going on, people? So, this is the final review for today, which is cool because, I've been sitting on this couch for like the last 30 minutes or something recording reviews. This is number 4 in case you're curious. So, side of the box for you down there, right? This is a particular pair of shoes that I've had my eyes on for some time now. I don't remember exactly when, but there was a time when I did a live unboxing with John, formerly of the Predator Minute podcast. Now he has a show called Seen It, where they talk about scenes from different movies, things like that, breaking stuff down. I forget exactly what the structure of the show is, but yeah, more or less something like that. Either way, so I said something to him around that time when we were trying to figure out what shoes we were going to buy to unbox. I was like, hey, have you seen these? I'm thinking about picking up a pair of them. And he's like, no, I haven't, but they seem like they could be kind of cool, right? And so for whatever reason, I then forgot about them completely. And eventually I remembered. And then, of course, when I remembered, they became hard to find. Because it's not a model that's super popular, right? They only had like 3 colorways, and I don't think I've ever seen them actually advertised. So when they kind of started to disappear, I was like, well, I guess I just won't get them. But then they had a sale not too long ago, and they happen to have brought a few more pairs in stock. So I made an order for this and an order for a pair of, NMDs? The NMDs got canceled, as I said in a previous video, but these did come through, which is why they're here. So I don't remember what I paid for them. I want to say it was probably somewhere around like 120 to 130, given that they're a standard 180. I felt like that was decent enough to take a chance on it. I do like to try out different running shoes, and they have that whole Lightstrike thing going on, so that's kind of what also sold me, because it's a pretty cool deal, right? If you were one of the 10 people that watched my previous review on these, the SL20, I did a review, then I did a performance review, and I really liked the way that these worked out for me, so I figured, let's try some more Lightstrike. And here we are, talking about this right here, the Adidas Adizero Pro in what is likely the signal green colorway, or solar yellow. They kind of fluctuate between those names, and I'm never sure exactly which one is which. But anyways, this right here, I'm going to start this review off at the bottom. Let me switch shoes so I don't feel all discombobulated. Down there, what you're looking at is pretty much your standard outsole on these, perhaps. I always say that, but I never really know if it's a new shoe. But from pictures, it's your standard outsole. Now there's a lot of stuff going on down there, right? In the front end, you got the Continental. In the back end, you got these, I don't know, it looks like some sort of aggro crag type of thing going on or whatever is happening. I don't even know, but they have it happening. And then under that, you can kind of see a little bit of boost, at least in the lower piece, the back piece, right? So you got that. Now moving on up here to the midsole, right? Here, it's kind of labeled on the back end, and it's also labeled on the inside as well, more on the middle. But it does say Lightstrike because they have Lightstrike in the mostly the front, right? And then in the back, it's mostly still Lightstrike, but there's a little bit of boost back here as well. And this boost, in case you're curious, it's more in line with like the earlier boost, like the 1 through 4s, not like the 19s where there was more of it and it was like stiffer. So I'll come back to that later, but just know that it's very much squishy, right? Kind of see that. But anyways, so that's what's going on here. And supposedly somewhere in here there's this carbon plate. I forget what the word is, but they've got a plate in here that kind of is supposed to help make it a more fluid motion, basically, with your toe push off and all that stuff from heel to toe. So it sounds like something that they did with the LEP system on the Ultra Boost 21s, but I don't know, I didn't really see much information about it. It just looked like it was just something thrown in the description. But I'll figure that out when I do the actual running review and stuff, because that'll come sooner or later. Now, on to the upper. The upper here, there's a lot of nothing going on, right? It's mostly just that same highlighter yellow sort of color and some stripes, right? That's pretty much it. But we're going to talk about it anyway, because that's what we do in these reviews. Some people seem like they don't know that because they just click on it and then they ask some stupid question and then they disappear. And I'm like, what do you think I do for this like 10 minutes? Like, seriously. So, getting back on track, down in here, what you're going to see, you can kind of see there's like a bit of a grittish type thing going on. You got this little crisscross vibe happening, right? So what that is this cellar mesh upper that they have going on. On the outside, it feels almost like a screen, you know, that sort of thing, kind of like plasticky, but not to the point where it feels bad like a couple Yeezys I did recently. And then if you look at it from the inside, hopefully you can get a good picture in there. What you're seeing on the inside, that actual yellow part or whatever, that actually feels like felt. So it's kind of like they have some sort of inner netting, basically, you know? And so that's what's going on. And overall, the way this upper is supposed to be constructed is supposed to kind of help hold your foot in place, give you some stability and all that good stuff, because it is a running shoe and that's the thing that you want, right? So that's why it looks the way that it looks. And that's why it feels the way that it feels. Moving back just a little bit, here are those 3 stripes I was talking about. So those, it is kind of an overlay piece. It feels very much just like some plastic tape that was put on there, almost like duct tape, you know what I'm saying? I assume that it's not and hope that it's not, because I'd expect them to do better things with, you know, the resources available to them. But hey, cut corners where you can, I suppose. But anyways, looking down in here, it's kind of got this rubbed off sort of thing going on, as if it's like worn down or whatever. It's not, but that's just kind of the vibe that they gave it. And I do kind of like it. It reminds me a little bit of those SL20s that I was talking about earlier. Now, past that, moving back just a little bit, that's where everything kind of stops as far as that mesh stuff, and then it actually gets into something that's going to be a little more stable for the back of your heel and everything like that. So that pretty much about sums up the shoe. On the inside, it does say Adizero Pro in silver, so that might have a little bit of a reflection to it if you hit some light on there. But that's about that. So let's go ahead and jump back over to the front of the shoe, knock out these laces and all that good stuff. So what you're looking at here is some very small, thin laces, right? They're not too different from those SL20 ones. They just look very thin and fragile, you know, like anorexic almost. And then on the tongue behind that, the tongue itself, it's weird to describe because it feels like this very thin neoprene type of thing going on. Like it feels like it would be stretchy, but it's not. But it feels squishy at the same time. I don't know. It's hard to describe unless that was good for you. If that's good for you, great. But I don't know, man. Like I feel like you should probably like go and find a pair if you can, and just feel them for yourself, and then report back to me. And then on the inside, you do have just a little bit of the stripes here. So the upper 2 kind of bleeds on over to the tongue piece. Not the bottom one, because that one's just on the outside, but that's what's going on there. And then getting these laces out of the way and all that good stuff, so we can talk about what's going on the inside, because that's where we go from there. So down here, what you're looking at is going to be a Lightstrike insole, or Lightstrike on the insole. And that insole, you might be able to tell if I can get a good picture in there. It's looking fairly thick, right? I couldn't get it out, and I didn't want to like pry it out because I feel like it's not made to come out. But it's, again, just looking like a very thick insole, right? And I'll come back to all that later with that when I talk about how they feel to wear them. But just know that it seems to take away from the amount of room you have. And so like I was saying, overall it's still going to be that highlighter yellow, solar yellow, whatever that color is that they want to go with all throughout here. And one thing that I didn't say, but you probably noticed, is that based on the way the upper is, it's all very much see-through, right? So if you wear these with the right kind of socks, whatever, it can probably make for a pretty cool combination. If you wear them with no socks, it's just going to look nasty. So don't do that. And it is nasty. It doesn't just look like it. So moving on from there, I believe we've covered everything about the inside of the shoe, right? And the outside, from what I'm seeing. So let's go ahead and I'll hit you with some personal thoughts, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the sizing. Well, one more thing. The lace tips, it has Adizero and all that stuff on that one, probably on the other one as well. Yep, so minor little detail for you. Now, those personal thoughts that I was talking about. This right here, one of the things about the Lightstrike shoes is that they don't seem to sell very well, so they're often cheap, and that makes me more inclined to try picking up a pair if I see one that catches my eye. And this one did, so now here we are, and I gotta say that just so far from looking at them up close and all that good stuff and the brief wear that I did, I am definitely on board with these. Is it a $180 purchase? Oh, it is not. It is not. Is it a $130 something purchase? Perhaps. If you got some extra money and there's nothing else you want out in the moment, yeah, go for it. But I will say that just based off the visual, I am very much cool with these. I like the coloring. I like that whole transparent thing that they have going on. So that's pretty all right too. Otherwise, I got nothing else to say about them other than just that it's a standard thumbs up for me. So hopefully that's enough for you as far as to know how I feel about them, right? Because sometimes people care about my opinion. Now, speaking of my opinion, let's go ahead and talk about the sizing and all that stuff, because that's something that matters, right? Right? So, 9.5. I mentioned that before. I'm a size 9.5 kind of guy, right? So that's what I buy in all my shoes, and I bought that in these because it's worked out on every other Adidas pair that I have, and pretty much every other shoe in general. It works out fine on here too for me. However, right? That's not the end of the story. It is not. The thing is, when I wear running shoes, I like to wear thinner socks, right? So I first put these on with like my average thickness type socks, and they did not feel so great. Largely, I want to say because of the way that thick insole is down there, and also because the way this mesh part is on the upper, right? It doesn't really give you a lot of mobility. The way that these feel, as far as like compared to like a prime knit thing that stretches out over time, the way these feel when you put them on is the way they will feel forever, right? So if you don't like the way they fit, you're probably never gonna like the way they fit. So for that reason, again, and I don't really like to tell people like to size up a whole lot because I usually don't see it being necessary. But in this particular case, you might want to consider, adding a half size to yourself, right? Now for me, I like a snug fit, right? So and with my standard thin running socks that I wear, these feel just fine to me. But again, I have my own personal preferences that you may not have. So take that, do what you want to do with it. Now, moving on to the midsole here. This Lightstrike thing, quick backstory on that. It's supposed to be lighter than Ultra Boost, but just as comfortable, right? So they're able to use more of it to make them super comfortable and still be lighter than your standard Ultra Boost. And that seems to work out. So you do feel that this is a very light shoe when you're wearing it, right? Now, the one thing that feels a little bit weird is between the heel and the front. You can tell it's got that split between the Boost and the Lightstrike. So the heel impact is very squishy and whatnot. And then it kind of turns into something that's not stiffer. Well, it is stiffer, but not stiff necessarily, right? So it feels weird walking in them at first, but that goes away. It's just those first steps. You're like, I don't know about this. It's almost like a React 270 or 270 React, excuse me. It's almost like one of those, right? So keep that in mind if you're looking into buying a pair of these and they feel weird when you first put them on. That could be why. But past that, I feel like they're going to be pretty good when I actually get them on the track and all that stuff. So that's when I'll do the actual real review, because as a standard walking shoe, I don't know about that for these, right? If you want something just for daily walking around, buy something else. Because for this type of thing, you're going to have to look for one because they've only had like a couple colorways and you might not find them for the price you want to pay. Whereas you can find any other random casual shoe in a plethora of colors for a pretty low price, practically everywhere. So it just takes less effort to get something else. Therefore, it kind of makes more sense to just get something else. Though I do actually like this shoe. I just can't always recommend everything, you know? So I think now that I've rambled on quite a bit about random stuff and whatnot, and possibly turn people away from buying something that I actually like, we can go ahead and wrap up this review for the most part. One thing I do want to add in here though, for anyone who's still with me for whatever reason, there are some little dirt type smudges every so often on here, right? There's one over here and there was one on one of these laces. So what I'm thinking is because these shoes have been around for a while, there's probably something that somebody bought, tried on, and then sent back because they didn't like it or whatever. And that's what I ended up with, right? And it kind of makes me, it doesn't necessarily bother me, but I don't quite like it either. But the thing is, I can't complain because, as I often say when I'm talking about like sizing and stuff, is to buy stuff from places that have good return policies. So if you don't like it, you don't get stuck with it. So it just sucks that sometimes you're on the other end of that and then you end up with that thing that someone else didn't like. You know what I'm saying? So again, I can't sit here and be mad about it because I've sent stuff back. Usually when I send it back, it's like it hasn't left the apartment. It's like, oh no, this is not for me. But not everybody does things the way that I do things, and sometimes I just have to deal with it. So that's cool. But luckily they were relatively cheap, and let's face it, I don't wear my shoes a whole lot anyway. You know, I keep the rotation going, you know? So there's that. And in case anybody cares, relatively fun fact for you. Well, it's not fun at all, it's just a fact. I haven't worn the same pair of shoes since December 5th, something like that. Outside of performance tests and whatnot, and like the beater type shoes I wear to like across the street to the stores or something. Yeah, so do with that information what you will, which is probably not a lot. From me to you, have a nice rest of your day, rest of your night, whatever it is, wherever you are. I am done with reviews now, right? Well, this was number 4, so I'm good. Cool. Just got to do a live in like 3 hours. All right, later, people.